The winners of the Ambies, the latest from Podnews.net with the Podcast Show, the new international festival for podcasting in London this May. The Ambies, the award for the Podcasting Academy that celebrates excellence in podcasting, took place last night. We link to the winners today in our show notes and our newsletter at podnews.net. 912 from Amazon Music, Pineapple Studios and Wondery was the podcast of the year. The podcast's host, Dan Taberski, accepted the award in the awards ceremony in Los Angeles in California, which is where I am. PRX and Google Podcasts have announced a new round of the Google Podcast Creator Program, a podcast accelerator and training program for audio producers around the world. Applications open on March the 29th. PodcastOne have just announced a partnership with Adori Labs for their YouTube podcast interface technology. The tech adds enriched visual content to podcasts and uploads them automatically to YouTube. Meanwhile, Studio 71 has signed Jumpers Jump as a, quotes, simulcast podcast, joining over 100 that Studio 71 distribute to YouTube. One of those, violating community guidelines, has achieved 5 million streams on YouTube in their first 2 months. We've been saying it for years, but Apple Podcasts has explained how their podcast charts actually work in a new blog post today. No, ratings and reviews are not part of the algorithm. They've also clarified how to set the order of your episodes, choosing between serialized and episodic, and clarified how automatic downloads work for serialized podcasts. Chartable is deprecating its Smart Ads product starting this week. June the 30th will be the last day that new impressions tagged with Chartable Smart Ads will be measurable. You'll be offered the opportunity to switch to Podsites. Both companies were bought by Spotify earlier this year. A new book has been published called Narrow Podcasting, a book for business owners who podcast. Author Toby Goodman is at Podcast Movement Evolutions. The book is available on Kindle and, in LA, in print. Pantheon Media and SiriusXM are working with cable TV executive Doug Herzog to tell the story of the glory days and crazy world of cable TV in a new podcast series. The series launches on May the 18th. Evooks has analysed the growing number of podcasts in Spanish. 40% of new Spanish-language podcasts last year were created by women. There are now more than 300,000 podcasts in Spanish. In 2021, the most new podcasts were made in the art and literature genre. And Eric Newsom has posted 5 things no one tells you when you leave public radio for podcasting. There has been a talent drain away from public radio in the US and UK towards podcasting. In People News, Eric Barnett has joined Supporting Cast as Director of Sales and Marketing. He joins from Findaway, an audiobook distribution company acquired by Spotify, where he was the Manager of Strategic Partnerships. And Bob Shannon is to join BBC Studios, the corporation's for-profit arm, as its first Director of Audio. He used to run BBC Radio 2, Europe's largest radio station, and was Director of Radio and Music for the BBC's public service. And in podcast news, Conversations on the Margins goes inside an Irish prison to give a voice to the people behind the prisoners. It's presented by an independent Senator, Lynn Ruane, who discovers that the prisoners have many things in common. And Gay Music in the Key of Q returned for a second series yesterday, presented and produced by London-based Dan Hall. The show aims to celebrate queer musicians, their lives and their music, and publishes every Tuesday, which the podcast calls Tuesday, because why not? The first guest is Brandon James Gwynn. This podcast is brought to you by The Podcast Show, the new international festival for podcasting in London this May. It's a 2-day business event with speakers like the CEO of Wondery, Jen Sargent, and Steph Simon from Clubhouse, with access to over 120 global brands and unmissable live shows. You can get 20% off day passes with the code PodNews at thepodcastshowlondon.com. And that's the latest from our newsletter. To read all the stories in full and subscribe, we're at podnews.net.